Alright guys, welcome back. The previous video we talked about asynchronous code in talking in theory, so what is the concept behind it. In this video we're going to talk about we're going to introduce it practically. So we will talk about async, callbacks and promises way to these are two ways to handle asynchronous code. Okay. So first I want to remember you how synchronous code work. We have our button as before. So let's just see that the code is saying you click on the bottom, it has an alert, and after the alert it will create a paragraph under the button. Since it's synchronous and so is a blocking code, as we already said, I click on the button, the alert comes up, and this is the main thread. It's occupying all the thread. So the only thing that our program can do is to use this. Then once I click OK, the paragraph comes up. Okay, so this is this is synchronous. One thread, okay, it has fired the alert. Now you click OK on the alert, and it adds the paragraph. Okay, but this was already something that you know. So let's move on, and let's see what is this fetch. Okay, I didn't want to show this immediately. Okay. Let response, here we want to add to a variable our fetch. We are fetching an image, so it should load an image, no? And then this variable response.blob. Blob, what is blob? Nothing very important. Nothing very important for now. For this, the blob object represents a blob, which is a file-like object of immutable raw data, blah blah blah. It's is called a binary large object, and it's a kind of format. That's it. So theoretically now it should fetch the image and then display the image. Let's see. We examine, and it's saying response.blob isn't a function. Isn't a function because the response is not defined. This response hasn't loaded yet because fetch takes a while. No, it takes a few maybe milliseconds, no, to get the response and loads it. But this is immediate. It takes nothing to load. So since it's asynchronous, it will once this event is ready, it will just fire it before we have actually loaded our response, and so it will fire this response.blob without even getting without even declaring response. So what I wanted to show was if we console.log response, and we come here, here we get a promise because we are logging our response, but we have a promise and not the actual response because it hasn't loaded, and so it's saying promise like something is pending, something is awaiting to be fulfilled, and so it comes only the promise and not the data itself. Okay, so this now let's move on and talk about this other stuff. So here we have an asynchronous functionality which is using the XML HTTP request, as we already have seen, but and the callback the callback functionality. So we are looking at callbacks right now, just to make clear. So we have our function which is called load asset, which accept 3 parameters. The first one, then here we call the function. No? So the first parameter is the URL we want to show, which is an image of something. Then we have the type, which is blob, and the callback, which is another function we're going to define. Okay. So then in this function, we declare a new HTTP request, XML HTTP request. We will open the XML HTTP request through the get method, and we are assigning the URL as parameters inside the open method, the XML HTTP request.open. And then we will use use the assign the response type to the XML HTTP request as blob. Okay, only after this XML HTTP request loads, finishes to load, we trigger a function, anonymous function, which will call a fallback. So this anonymous function has the fallback function inside, which accepts as parameter hxr.response. Okay, the callback is display image. Display image is this function which accepts as parameter blob. It creates a variable, let the object URL equal to URL.create object URL blob. So here we are assigning our URL to object URL. So then this variable becomes our URL. Then we have let image. We are assigning to let image, and we create an element that is called an image element. And then we are assigning to image source the object URL, so our URL, and finally we will append this as child element to the body. I know that this is so complicated, it's a lot of up and down, but that's why they created another function for this, so to say. When everything is fine, so once the request is loaded, the function got triggered, they create the image and they insert the URL inside the image, then they will send finally they will send the request, and so everything will be triggered. Now let's see the result. Okay, so our image loads normally, and our callback has worked. Okay, fine. Anyway, as I said, this is the almost outdated method. There is a better one. Let's see this other method. So let's see this other piece of code. As you already might have noticed, the length of the code is embarrassingly less, and this is good because we have just finished to use a code that is about 20 lines, and this piece of code is about 8. So much better. Here I took my class.json as the last video, or maybe the second video, the video before the last, and we use what is called fetch method. So what is doing here? Instead of using the load asset and we created an entire function to use the XML HTTP request to open the HTTP request with the get method and get the response type. We don't need to create an entire function, but there is a built-in function that does this for us, which is fetch. So we just need to say fetch class.json. Then, which means after, once here we said xhr onload function, anonymous function, we still created this on our own, but here is already created because we specify that what is after then will be executed only after we have fetched the class.json. Then function which accept responses parameters and return response.json. So the response that you are going to return, you return a response, you are returning it as a JSON format. Okay. Once you do this, then another function which accept JSON as parameters, and this is just placing a constant class. It could be class. Theoretically, it was class now, but class is not something I can use, so I used the Italian word for class equal to JSON. So we are doing instead of we're just giving it a name that is readable now. Instead of using JSON as name, which is not readable, use class, and then you console.log dati data, sorry, let's do it in English, data class. So we are logging our data, and if everything is fine, it should log an object of maybe you didn't see it, somebody didn't see it. We have this small object in JSON format. We come here, it should log it in the console. And here we have data object, and we have our object. So everything is good. We even have a catch. So fetch problems. In case something goes wrong, we have a catch method can catch the errors and log a message that can explain it for us in a elegant manner, so to say. So if now we mess up something, I don't even know what to mess up. For example, you cancel here. Okay. Fetch problems, classes not defined, or others, I mean. So, and this works, the code before was working with what we call a callback method. This is working with promises, which is a new style, a new way of coding that has been introduced not recently, etc., etc. So I strongly suggest you to use this. The other still works, and it will work. It will work forever. I don't know, but you understand what I mean. But this is generally what is used now because it's much simpler and is better in every aspect. So there is no way that you can prefer to use this other method, even if maybe at the beginning you would say, okay, but I think I feel like this is better because I got used to it. That's normal, but unfortunately computer science is like this, it always evolves. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and bye bye.